Hello and welcome to the OMG show with your host, Oscar Garcia. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 2. Today's episode is titled Burning the Boats. Now, I'm actually really excited for this episode because if there was a phrase that could pretty much summarize my story, this would be it. It's burning the boats. Not only is it something that metaphorically means a lot to me, but it's also something that is part of my own history. And so I'm kind of excited to share this story with you today because I hope it helps you think of things differently and kind of show you that it is possible and maybe encourage you to take a little action in whatever direction you would like to take in your life and in your business. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm very free flow with these podcasts too, by the way. So one thing I will say is that, again, being a direct response marketing expert, I work with businesses that, again, are stuck at a certain point in their business, right? They come out and reach out to me because they feel they need someone else. They feel they need some external help to get to the next level. Now, I applaud many of these individuals that decide to reach out because they took the decision upon themselves to do so. However, many don't. Now, again, in yesterday's episode, I mentioned that many entrepreneurs, many business owners just like you are seeking a life of freedom and independence. Right? You want to be financially stable. You want to be able to travel the world, eat good food, drink good wine, spend time with people you want to spend time with, celebrate experiences, all that really good and amazing stuff that we all love to enjoy, right? But for some reason, most of us end up struggling trying to attain that life. And the reason why I like to call it, the comfort zone. I wish I could come up with a more, marketing-ish name. But at the moment, I kind of call it your comfort zone. And it's, we all have a comfort zone. We all have a zone where we know we like to operate, where we know what we like and what we don't like. And we feel safe and we feel secure. Now, psychologically, this is really great for us because it allows us to survive, right? We're very survival-based creatures as far as figuring out if I stay here inside this comfort zone, I know I can survive, I know I can thrive, I know I'll be alive, right? But the moment you try to grow outside of that comfort zone, all the red light indicators inside of your body, inside of your head are letting you know, hey, time out, what's going on? Stop, right? It's that fight or flight response. But what ends up happening is that if we stay in our comfort zone for too long, we actually never grow. We never become a better potential of ourselves. We never reach our full potential, I should rather say. Right? The reason why is because, again, in order to reach our potential, we must challenge ourselves. You see? So when you're stuck in this comfort zone for a long time, you end up settling, right? You end up accepting what is around you and you settle. Okay? Not that there's anything wrong with settling, but if you're trying to get to a state of freedom and independence, you're going to have to get outside of your comfort zone a little bit. Okay, and when you settle, you tend to let things go, right? So you kind of decide to pass up on opportunities. You tend to pass up on experiences. You tend to pass up on pretty much things that are going to take you out of this comfort zone. Even though you kind of want to do them, you have a feeling you want to do them. There's something inside of you that pulls you back and says, you know what? No, we're not going to do that. Over time, what happens is that you end up losing yourself. You lose confidence and you lose momentum. Thankfully, I've had experiences with people that are much, much older than me and have educated me and I've listened to them and all their wisdom and tell me that, when opportunity comes by, take it up because you don't want to live 20, 30, 40 years down the road, look back and say, what happened, right? I know for me personally, that's something that I do not wish for anyone to have where you're just like, what happened to my life, right? And again, it happens because we settle. We like to stay inside that comfort zone. All right. And I've had experiences with this. Actually, to go back to my corporate world days, after year 2, I kind of knew that I was looking for more and I was ready for more. But of course, at that time, I had car payments, cell phone payments, I had rents, I had, all the bills. On top of that, you have the social pressures from family and society that says you should have a job, you should be, a grown man essentially by the time you're 23, 24, 25, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of pressures, internal pressures as well as far as, here I am, I have my degree, I have my job, here's how I should be feeling, I got my car, check, 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 right? So there's all these internal pressures and all these external pressures that I had. And for pretty much the whole last year, if I'm being completely honest, I wanted to be out of the business that I was in. I wanted to do my own thing. I wanted to figure out what was the next move. But I didn't make any decisions because I was safe. I had a 401k. I had benefits. I had a great team. I had great coworkers, right? I knew my drive to work every single day. I was very comfortable, and I knew I was pretty well off. I knew I had an amazing opportunity there, and if I wanted to stay, it would have, probably blossomed into something else. So I had all this doubt inside of my head, and these flight responses that were telling me to stay there, even though deeply I wanted to move on. What ended up happening over the last year that I was there was I fell into shambles. I lost the relationships that I was in because, imagine I worked a 10 to 7 schedule. It means I have to wake up at 8 to get ready by 9, to be in the car by 9, to then be by work by 10, to then work from 10 to 7, to then sit in traffic from 7 to 8, to be home by 8:30, 9 o'clock. My whole day was pretty much based around work. So by the time I got home, I didn't want to deal with anybody. I didn't want to even deal with myself. All I wanted to do was veg out and watch Netflix, right? I didn't want to cook. So what would I do? Fast food, right? So here you have this culmination of fast food, lack of exercise, lack of sleep, high stress, no real relationships, no real emotional connection with anyone else. You compile that over a year, and what ends up happening is you have this individual that was highly confident, highly successful, really proud of themselves, to now being close to 300 pounds, super demotivated, low self-esteem, high stress, and just kind of like a shell of who they were. I remember going back, and the relationship I had at the time was just super dark, and I feel unfortunate for those times. But looking back now, I understand why that was. And the reason was because there was a huge conflict inside of me that was keeping me in my comfort zone, even though I really wanted to get out of that. Okay. Now, what happened? Why am I talking to you about this today? Well, luckily for me, I had a mentor. Okay, and this is why I recommend mentors to anyone. Doesn't matter where or what stage of your business you are in, you should have a mentor that is a couple years ahead of you, that's experienced in that field, in that industry, because they could always provide these little bits of wisdom that are just going to take you to the next level. So luckily for me, I had a mentor who was the vice president at one of the largest financial firms here in my local area. And I remember he saw me and he looked at me after a couple months and he's like, "Oscar, what happened?" It was that bad. Physically, I just looked terrible. And he's like, "What happened?" And I told him what's going on. And I was telling him, that I'm at this job, it's great benefits, and I should be happy. And I know I'm not being grateful, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I want more. I want this other thing. And I'm not sure if I can do it. I'm not sure if I'm being selfish. I'm just, I have all this doubts, right? And on top of that, my parents are first generation. Well, I'm first generation. So my parents are relying on me to be able to take care of them at some point. And I knew that by doing this, I was going to have to, strain the family out for a little bit longer, right? So he heard everything that I had to say. And then he comes back with 3 words: burn the boats. And at the time, I'm just scratching my head. I'm like, what are you talking about? Burn the boats, right? What do you mean? I'm not talking about fishing here. I'm talking about my life. Burn the boats. What is that? And he's like, well, Oscar, you're Mexican, right? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, okay, well, you should know all about this. And then he goes on to tell me that back in the day, when the Spanish were coming over and they were conquering Mexico, Cortez landed his boats on the Mexican beaches and said, "You know what, men? Burn the boats. We're not going to leave until we take this over." Okay. Now, I'm not sure if that's true. I've looked it up and sure there are some references. But at the end of the day, what I like about that story is the metaphor, because long story short, that's what happened. All right. Spain pretty much took over Mexico and they burned the boats. But the fact of the story, the point of the story is that you have to commit, right? You have to commit. You have to get out of that comfort zone and commit to being better, to pushing yourself into something else, to getting out of that comfort zone and settling. Okay. So once he told me that story, everything kind of just aligned and clicked and it made complete sense. And I think 2 weeks after that, I put in my 2 months notice. And at that point, it was December 15th, 2015. That was my last day. And I pulled out my 401k. And then the rest is history, because I was able to commit. And I'll be honest with you, committing is hard. It's hard to commit. Not a lot of people like to commit, because committing in itself is something else that's attacking your survival, right? You like to have options because you like to know that you can kind of bounce back from one to the other. The moment you commit, you kind of restrict yourself. However, that restriction is what actually liberates you. Okay? That restriction allows you to, again, go into what I talked about yesterday. Learn, adapt, overcome, and progress. All right? But you have to commit. You have to burn your boats. You have to burn that sense of security. All right? Be mindful, though. Don't just go all willy-nilly. Right? Come up with a plan. Come up with a game plan. Some strategies that you're gonna follow up. Right? But at the end of the day, if you are trying to really do something with your business, with your life, you have to commit to it. Okay? I tried starting my business while I still had a full-time job. And let me tell you, it was impossible. I couldn't do it. If you can, more props to you. You should be educating me. But I know from my personal experience, I couldn't do it because I know my personality. I know myself. I know that I can only focus on one thing at a time. If not, everything kind of goes awry. So it is scary. It is scary to make commitment. But you know what's even scarier? When you settle and you let life pass you on. All right? When you're 40, 50, 60 years old and you're looking back and you're wondering what happened. That's what's scarier. All right? All right, well, I think that's it for today's episode. Again, remember, burn the boats, okay? Please make sure you subscribe and share this podcast to at least one other person who needs to hear this message. If you know someone that is kind of struggling with making a commitment, let them hear this message, let them hear this podcast, and hopefully it'll give them the courage to burn their boats and make that commitment that they need in order to start their business, to run their business, to scale their business, whatever decision they need to make. They need to burn the boats, they need to commit and just go with it. And by going with it, they're going to learn, they're going to adapt, overcome, and progress. Otherwise, there's going to be a lack of action, a lack of direction, lack of decision making, and again, a lot of wasted time. All right. So again, burn the boats. Forget, settling, forget staying inside of that comfort zone, because if you want to build the life of freedom and independence you want to have for yourself, it's going to take some commitment, and you're going to have to burn some safety nets in order to move on, because what has gotten you here today is not what's going to get you there tomorrow. All right. Thank you again so much, everyone. This is episode 2 of the OMG show. Check back tomorrow with some more great content for you.